Just as the fall colors begin to fade, so does some of my excitement and thrill for the garden around me, especially by this time in the year. I feel I must drum up the last smidgens of love for gardening every fall, just trying to tie up the loose strings so I don't come out to a total nightmare in the spring. My excitement always returns by typically around December or January, and I am all ready to buy seeds again for the following year. But by the end of the summer and the harvest, I am ready to just shut the garden gate and be done. All that being said, let me backtrack a little bit. A year ago in September, my husband and I had sold our home we had remodeled as newlyweds, and we moved over and stayed in my mom and dad's upstairs bedroom for 6 months while we remodeled this little cabin that was on their property. We wanted to sell our house while the market was good, and so we moved over here until we could find another place to buy. So we fixed up this cabin, and this last summer I planted a huge garden where I used to grow all of our vegetables, and it was great. But then I started feeling kind of guilty as I looked at my mom's poor garden, because gardening, though once it was kind of a hobby of hers, she has so many other things going on now, especially that my dad has passed away, that gardening has kind of had to go on the back burner. So this last spring, I had determined to get her garden under control, and that did not happen. And then during this summer, I determined to get her garden under control, and that didn't happen just because when I did come outside, I was usually trying to just keep up with my own, try and pull the weeds out of it. And so finally this fall, mine is a totally tillable area, so I'm able to just leave it until spring. And I determined I'm at least going to get half of Mom's garden in order, so next year is not so hard trying to keep up with both. And so that's kind of what today's video is all about. The history of the gardens. Okay, so now I'm going to back up a little bit and show you clips that I got at the start of this fall that kind of show some of what the state of the garden was in, and you can see how far it's progressed, and maybe it'll give you some inspiration, especially during this stressful time of the elections where being outside in a peaceful garden is actually very, very appealing to me. Okay, so as you can see, there are weeds that are 4 to 6 feet high that need to be pulled up, gravel that needs to be poured, piles that need to be removed, beds that need to be filled with dirt, and then paths that need to be relain with gravel so that less weeds grow in them, is my hope.
Okay, it is a really cold day. It's like 40-something degrees out here right now. So in this garden, there is a total of about 55 beds. So as you can imagine, it is pretty weedy and a lot of work. So I tried to divide the garden into sections in my head. This is how my brain works. Everything is in a box. I'm like a man. So behind me is a box. So this is my first box. In front of me is a box. So now this is my next section, like this whole area that's not completed here, from up to the house to the sheep fence. And this way, there are 2 boxes in my brain. So I kind of consider this like the third section. All these beds right here, the strawberry beds, plus all the way up to the house. And then this as my 4th section, which is just like yeah, it'll be some work. I've never made it this far, and my mom hasn't either. It's such a big area. And so I work from one box to the next. So I try not to move on to the next box until I have the first one done. So I've been out here a few hours today. Carrie's finally taking a nap, so I can hopefully get a lot done in a shorter amount of time.
It wasn't but a couple days after this that I woke up to about 6 to 8 inches of snow. So my gardening progress was temporarily delayed. Thankfully, however, the snow was not permanent. And so after about a week, it completely melted and I was able to head back out to the garden to try to finish my third area in the garden before a total snowfall and a total exhaustion of garden labors. So as you can see, this project has involved dumping a ton of dirt. I think I've gone through 100 bags so far at least of soil, refilling the beds. It's involved a ton of moving of gravel and dumping it. My brothers helped me a lot in that area. I have cleaned out tons of leaves, tons of grass, tons of weeds. And really my goal for this is to create kind of a French-styled kitchen garden. That's my hope. And so I really want to bring some of that in here next year by planting a lot of flowers and planting a lot of things that I can actually cut bouquets for and hopefully sell, and really creating a comforting and inviting atmosphere that you could take someone into and sit on the bench under the arbor and enjoy an afternoon together visiting. Or I also would like to set up a table out here and have just kind of a nice little spot you could come out and eat, or I could take a break from my gardening. And so that's really kind of the goal in this space. When it comes to moving all of this pea gravel that we have to move, this electric wheelbarrow of my brother's has been so helpful. That being said, as you can see, the struggle of trying to get it through, a good 6 inches of pea gravel to begin with down the paths was very real. And I was very grateful for my brother's muscles, because I would not have been able to maneuver this by myself over this type of terrain. So I didn't completely finish the garden, which is kind of sad, but I got about 3/4 of it done. I just have that 4th section that I was talking about earlier that is really going to be quite a nightmare. And so I'm not going to try and tackle that until next spring. I'll try and get on it before there's a lot of weeds. And then I'll really try to beautify that area and make it a place that's attractive and appealing, a place that brings rest and peace. To complete the tucking in of the garden, I went around and just planted some random flower bulbs that I ordered from Johnny's that I don't even remember exactly what the colors were they were supposed to be or what exact type of flowers all these were. I just planted them, and I can't wait to see them spring up in the spring. And it makes me think of this beautiful little quote from Audrey Hepburn that I've been meaning to make a sign out of and put in my garden that says, "To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow." And perhaps that's part of the reason why I absolutely love gardening. It's been something that I just completely enjoy and relish doing. And it makes me think of this tiny bulb that I'm putting here in the earth. And the fact that although it's so small, it is going to be freezing cold out here soon. The ground is going to completely harden. It is going to be snowy, blizzardy, blistering cold. Then eventually the snow is going to melt and it is going to be pouring rain and swampy, muddy. And yet, despite the hardships of winter and the chilliness of spring and the dampness and the moisture, this bulb is going to spring forth and it's going to produce because of the hardship that it endured. The seasons nourished it, gave it strength, helped it become hardy, and so it could bloom into a flower that is truly beautiful. And it makes me think of right now in the world, there are so many things going on that aren't beautiful, that are hard and rough, and yet I think despite that, especially as Christians, we can use this as a tool to strengthen ourselves, to become more equipped, and become better blessings to others. There are so many beautiful things about the garden that I love, and so many illustrations working in it produces. And so, speaking of spring, it is time to close the garden gate and be grateful for all that these grounds have produced. And wait until next spring, when the flowers will bud, when the weeds will grow, and when it will be time to plant and start the cycle all over again. It is truly a beautiful thing.